Everyone always talks about Intel Xeons and how they are amazing and cost effective and just pretty powerful for what they are. I mean, a ton of people daily these things, even systems as old as X79 or even older. What if I told you back in 2011, AMD released Opteron server CPUs with 16 cores, threads? Oh man, early 2010s AMD. Does anybody even use these things? No, not you. Either way, each of these now cost $20 a piece. And what if I told you you can cheaply and easily get a motherboard that takes 2 of these CPUs for a total of 32 cores? Maybe AMD wasn't the underdog everyone wants you to believe. Maybe this is some deep state conspiracy. To be completely honest, and I think most people know very little about the Opteron CPUs. I knew of their existence, but never really heard anybody talk about them, even in situations where their high core counts and high memory were pretty important. And when I looked at prices, they were way too high for what they should be. I mean, a 12-core Intel Xeon 2697 V2, another DDR3 CPU from around that time, is like $20. So why are these a similar price, if not more expensive? Is it core count? Lack of availability? I'm big on cost per dollar. So when I see something that completely breaks the mold and costs way more or less than it should be, I raise an eyebrow and I start to ask questions. Back when these came out, AMD was in a bad spot. Their launch of pile driver was underwhelming, to say the least, and their foothold in the consumer and enterprise world, well, it wasn't even a foot. It was like a pinky toe. But man, was that little guy holding on for dear life, let me tell you. The launch of these chips had at least some optimism to them. AMD's always been pretty good at hype, at least in my eyes, even when they really didn't deserve any hype at all. The only problem is, while these chips were somewhat competitive at release, they launched right as Intel was coming out with LGA 2011. Did I mention these don't support AVX2? Yeah. While the Opterons did launch with more cores, in theory, I really don't want to be a part of the comment debates, okay? The cores they came with were slower than Xeons, giving these a similar problem to Piledriver and Bulldozer, where they had more cores, but the cores were slower and most workloads at the time didn't really utilize all those extra cores because, well, no one was really making CPUs like that. It was more about single core performance. This was especially bad for their desktop chips, like the FX series, which I revisited somewhat recently, like last year. But we're in the enterprise space, and typically enterprise tasks would use more cores at the time. And nowadays, applications love cores, kind of. So maybe these are some actual serious hidden gems that nobody knows or talks about. Maybe one time I have gotten a bad deal and come out on the other end looking good. Maybe. So questions were asked, and now they will slowly be answered, starting with actually getting my hands on some of these guys. I went ahead and got 2 AMD Opteron 6281s. They were quite pricey for the age of the chips at $46.50 for the pair, but that's nothing compared to the cost of the Asus KGPE-D16. That cost me a whopping $150. Ouch. Major thanks to the pseudo owner of my Discord for showing this to me, by the way. After that, I got myself 48 gigabytes of DDR3 ECC RAM for a total of $40. This was also back in January, so prices are probably different, but that's what I paid at the time. Add in a power supply for, let's say, $80. And this, oh man, Vitro AL800 eATX case for $80. Then a random SATA boot drive because I have it, and a GPU, which in my case will be the RX 6600. I know that seems like a weird GPU choice for this, maybe a little underpowered. Let's see, we'll find out. This setup is going to run you somewhere in the $600 to $700 range though, which I mean for 32 cores, I mean compare that to Threadripper. Maybe this is a killer deal, I don't know. The prices of these CPUs and motherboards have actually dropped since I bought the parts. One of these motherboards is, well, there's one listing for $69.99, but for the CPUs, you can get something like a 6380 for $20 or even less. Actually, about 2 for $10 a piece, but they didn't get here in time for actual testing, sadly. If you did get these for cheap, you could, in theory, max this thing out with 256 gigabytes of DDR3 ECC RAM for only about $100 and $150, depending on the prices you find. So if you need lots of cheap RAM, this could potentially have a use case there. But other than that, I mean, Libre boot, is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. That's kind of cool, I guess. Unsurprisingly, besides the sheer size and weight of this motherboard, building it is pretty similar to pretty much any other system I've built. There is an absolutely insane amount of SATA ports though. Who needs an HBA when you have this many SATA ports? Dear Lord. Also, this USB port works and has 2 because there's only 2 USB ports on the back of the board, so that can be inconvenient. Obviously, the first thing I did was put this on my test bench with my 650 watt power supply to make sure it worked, and it didn't. For some reason, it was shorting out on one of the standoffs, so after some well-placed cardboard, it started to boot again, and at this point, Back in February, I set it down to work on other projects and didn't touch it. So out it came months later. I took it out and went to try and use it, and the motherboard died. Funnily enough, this motherboard is actually the second motherboard that I've bought for this project. With the sponsor deadline looming, I had to get something together, so I overnighted a replacement motherboard. I was assured it would be shipped that night and arrived by the end of the next day. 2 days later, it showed up at my door. I spent $150 shipping that. Pain. Speaking of huge, shout out to this video sponsor. That wasn't a good transition. FlexiSpot. I want to give a huge shout out to FlexiSpot for not only providing this beautiful bamboo E7L standing desk, but also sponsoring this video. I work a desk job, so sitting all day, then coming home and sitting all night to work on videos is not ideal. So having a big L desk where I can stand and still have the extra space an L desk provides is absolutely perfect for me and what I need a desk for. The E7L standing desk is extremely durable, stable, and gives you an insane amount of space to work with. I replaced my main desk with this one and have enough space not only for my honestly really janky triple monitor setup, but also space for my laptop or notes that would normally just add a ton of clutter to the main section of my desk. This desk is great for my posture, and the motors are so strong you can even sit on the desk while it raises and lowers, which is really, really cool. Even with all this extra wood, that's cool. Not only that, but even at max height, it is very stable, so it won't wobble while you're trying to type or write down notes. Also, 15-year warranty. That's insane. Like actually, that's insane. Nothing else comes with a warranty that long. And I mean, hey, look how nice it looks. It's extremely easy to put together, and my favorite part, it is super affordable compared to basically any standing desk of a similar quality. So anyways, thank you again to FlexiSpot. This is my second desk from them, and both are holding up very, very well so far. From here on out, I'm going to be entirely switching to their desks because it keeps me from sitting down, and I mean, they also just look really amazing. Check out the link in the description to head over to FlexiSpot's website and use my code on screen for an extra $50 off and E7L, so you can match me and we can both have very nice desks and good posture and just be healthier, happier, live a better life, you know? One thing you might have issues with is the heatsink for the CPUs. I had these passive ones that I got somewhere along the line with these chips and motherboards, but each of these ASUS motherboards came with an active cooler each. So after I bought 2 motherboards, I had a pair and no need for passive coolers anymore. Nice. At first, I thought it'd be cool to build a PC that would look cool. Then I realized I didn't feel like matching orange, green, black, and red with a black case. So I got the cheapest EATX case that looked good on Amazon, and instead of using the black fans that I have about a dozen of, I got these gray Noctua fans to really add some more great color into the mix. I actually wanted to use some regular Noctua brown fans, but I thought that might actually match the RAM slots a little bit and look good, and that just wasn't really going to work for me at all. So here we are, possibly the ugliest thing I have ever built, and it is really heavy and hot. It also has a whine that my microphone can't pick up. It is extremely annoying. It drives me and my cats crazy. This case though, which is nice, has a ton of ports on top. Too bad none of them work. The USB 2 does. Rest, not so much. Partially out of laziness, partially because this motherboard doesn't support any of them, like USB-C. Also no RGB. Lame. Come on, AMD from like 2011. What are you thinking? Jokes aside, installing Windows was a pain in the ass, but I got it on here, and I didn't have any major driver issues. Things just kind of worked, which was nice. Regular Windows was regular Windows. I did notice a lot of programs didn't install using multiple cores, and it would take a really, really long time to install, because who would make an installer support 32 thread for NUMA nodes? What is going on? Okay, now you are free to argue in the comments. I'm intrigued why there are 4 NUMA nodes here. That is really weird. Now for testing, and let's be real, this was never going to be sane testing. BioShock Infinite, 1080p, very high settings, had a nice, cool 15% CPU usage and some stuttering, but it did get an average of 78 FPS with a 1% low of 8 FPS. Not the worst, playable, but kind of garbo. BeamNG took absolutely forever to load, but after loading, wasn't really that bad of an experience. Average of 37 FPS with a 1% low of 11. I would totally play a Beam like this if I didn't have any other options and needed a space heater in the winter. Doom and Gloom ran surprisingly well, as it always does. Average of 108 FPS, 1% low of 91. Really great experience, surprisingly. I literally can't complain, and I'm a YouTuber. I'm really good at that. Now, Red Dead Redemption wouldn't launch, so I tried GTA 5, which wouldn't launch. So I tried Minecraft and got locked on my Microsoft account. So I tried Fortnite. Fortnite, 1080p medium preset. I kind of assumed it was going to have issues since it typically does on higher core count systems, and this was not an exception. It had pretty much constant heavy stuttering and wasn't using much of the CPU or GPU. Very bummer, very sad. I lost frequently trying to benchmark this. Now for some creativity. Adobe Premiere and After Effects both wouldn't work. Cool. I had to downgrade both of them to 2023 versions, then I was able to open up my 5D Classic benchmark timeline. That exported in 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Not that bad, all things considered. My main PC would probably churn through that in a couple of minutes, but hey, whatever. Apples to oranges, right? Or something. I don't know what that phrase means. I also went ahead and did Blender BMW. That took 6 minutes and 2 seconds to finish. That's not great, but much better than expected, so that's cool. And lastly, Cinebench R23. After I started the benchmark, each CPU started to suck up 130 watts of power. That is more than most business PCs will consume nowadays per chip. The amount of heat coming out of this thing is frankly staggering. Good news though, this got a score of 7254. Not good news, that's slower than a 2697 V2. These chips are brutal. They consume a ton of power, put out a ton of heat, and have 4 NUMA nodes for some reason. They don't support AVX12, and man, they are just so cool. Are these a cheap Xeon alternative? No. Are they really cool and unique? Yeah, they kind of are. And if you want to experience these, check out my eBay page. Please buy these from me. And thank you again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out their website and pick up an E7L standing desk for yourself. They really are just genuinely very, very good products. Someone please buy the Opterons from me. $50 a piece. I'll sign them.